I'm excited to be here talking about something that affects everyone in this room, which is the integration of new entrants into the national airspace system. So as was mentioned yesterday, I'm a helicopter pilot, and I've always thought of helicopters as kind of operating in the cracks in the national airspace system. And this is not a good situation. It's not good for helicopters, as I think we saw with the crash that killed Kobe Bryant. It's also not good for everyone else, which I think we saw very tragically earlier this year at DCA. And the only reason it's really worked at all is because there's not a lot of helicopter operations out there. So these days I spend most of my time writing about electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, or eVTOLs. And the developers of these aircraft tell you that very soon there's going to be hundreds or even thousands of them operating in the national airspace system. Whether or not that actually happens, it is true that there's a lot of new entrants vying for a piece of the airspace, and it's going to be challenging to figure out how to integrate all of them safely. So we have eVTOLs, but also drones and commercial space operations, and we're going to be talking about all of them here today. We have a really excellent panel. I know we're going to have some pretty dynamic discussions, so you'll be meeting all of them shortly. But I just want to flag that there will be some time at the end of the panel for audience questions. So if you have questions, you can get those ready for us. There's microphones in the room, and then you can also submit them through your phone. So with that, let's meet our panelists. And I'd like to just go down the line. And if each of you could introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about your background, and then also tell us what is your number one safety concern with the integration of new entrants into the NAS. And Tanner, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Elan. My name is Dr. Tanner Furr, and I am a commercial space subject matter expert for ALPA International. On a daily basis, I serve as a scientific advisor to senior ALPA leadership on the integration of commercial space vehicles into the NAS. I work on various industry working groups and space safety regulatory panels, and have published significant academic work on the integration of commercial space vehicles into the NAS. In addition to all of that, I am also a captain on the 737 for Delta Airlines. A very common misconception that I've heard lately is the idea that commercial space vehicle integration into the NAS is a challenge that's 5 years down the road. And I'm here to give you the news that it is not 5 years away, and it's not 2 years away. It's right now. We're in it. This integration effort began officially at the beginning of this year, when regulators decided that commercial rockets and commercial airliners would occupy the same airspace. And we are at a major decision point collectively. When I say we, I'm referring to both current NAS users, new entrants, and regulators alike. I look at it like we're standing at a fork in the road, and we have to decide which way we're going to proceed. On the one hand, we have the easy road. The easy road sees us not develop the systems required to actually integrate the NAS, reduce safety standards, throw it all together, and hope that it works. The other road, the more challenging road, requires us to collaborate, to bring our vast collective resources to bear, and to integrate the NAS properly. This may sound like a very simple decision, but I will caution you, there are already calls being made to take that easy road. I have heard them with my own ears, and I have read them with my own eyes. So, the stakes are high, and here there is an opportunity to fail. But we must also recognize there is a very real opportunity to succeed. To directly address your question, Elan, I would say my number one concern with the integration efforts so far is I see us every day making decisions in real time that nudge us down one of these paths or the other. I sense the direction we're going, and I don't think it's the correct one at this time. To put an exact label on it, I would say the willful reduction in human safety standards within the national airspace system and an apathetic regulatory environment that is allowing it to go unchallenged.
Okay, we are going to unpack that in greater detail. So, awesome. Dallas.
My name is Dallas Brooks. I work for a company called Wing Aviation, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of Alphabet, folks who own Google. We do drone delivery to your home from Walmart and DoorDash. We bring fresh orders straight, whatever you order, shows up in your driveway or backyard, wherever you like. We've been doing this in the Dallas-Fort Worth area for the last, 3+ years. We started in Australia back in 2015, just opening new locations in Charlotte as I speak, moving to the Tampa, Orlando corridor next, and then on to Atlanta. So expanding incredibly rapidly. Walmart wants us to open stores basically as fast as we can open them. Our drone, our primary drone, is 11 pounds of styrofoam. It has 16 motors, all of them about this big around. The drone itself is designed to basically disintegrate upon contact. So we took the approach early on that we were going to make the airplane as minimally invasive as possible. Keep it lightweight, keep it extraordinarily frangible, no heavy mass components on it. So we might scratch your paint, it's about all we're going to do, right? Not in your case, we won't be anywhere near you. We'll talk about that in a second. Our standard drone carries about 3 pounds. We get a larger version that carries 5 pounds, also made of styrofoam. We've been very successful in the communities that we've entered into because we pay very close attention to those communities, the aviation side, the consumer side. We listen, we understand what they want. We spend at least a year, often 18 months, between the time we select the city and the time we begin operations, working with all the municipalities. We only fly in the Mode C Vale underlying Class B airspace, not in Class B itself, in the Vale. The reason for that is to take advantage of contiguity, of the vastly larger numbers of people who are squawking, because that's one of the ways that we track other aircraft. We have others. And our delivery model, we're now up to 600,000 commercial deliveries without a single incident involving another aircraft. The occasional, the aircraft diagnoses it's got a problem, puts itself down in a safe area, and we retrieve it. And that's about it for our safety record. So to date, we are the safest form of aviation that's ever been introduced into the National Airspace System. It's our aim to keep it that way through various measures. And looking forward to tell you more about how that works. I personally, 26-year veteran of the United States Air Force, retired out of the Pentagon in 2010 as the chief of UAS integration, the very first one ever. Was also the liaison to the FAA from the Department of Defense, Policy Board and Federal Aviation. Retired in place in the Pentagon to chair the Department of Defense's Airspace Integration IPT, where I ran integration for all 4 services until my wife came to me with a warm smile, a big hug, and a gun to my ribs and said, it's time to leave DC. So we moved to Environ Southeast. I've worked for 2 major universities directing UAS research and development programs before joining Wing about 4 years ago. Currently living in Tennessee. My boss is in DC and our headquarters are in San Jose. So as you can tell, we're a truly distributed organization. But most of my time is spent in DC as I'm closely aligned with FAA and do most of our work in terms of negotiating what we can do, proving we can do it safely, and making sure that not only do they understand how our system works, but that we can demonstrate to some very old school heads that our safety methods meet their expectations.
Jim, how about you?
All right. Good morning, everybody. I'm Jim Webb. I'm the Vice President of Flight Operations for Boeing. I'm the Chief Pilot for the company. My oversight involves over 550 aircrew and support personnel now stationed all around the globe. I think never before have we had this number of our aircrew that are in contact, closer contact with our customers than ever before. So we're very, very much appreciative of the feedback that we get, and that could feed back into our engineering, our production system to make a better product for you all. My background was 26 years in the Navy. I was F-18, pretty much got to fly all but about 3 of those years. I enjoyed that very much. My last job was as the commanding officer of NAS Oceana. And so our challenge of airspace, I've seen that movie before. It was a little bit more about noise, but the coordination and the integration requirements of incorporating different types of airplanes, working with the government officials, working with regulators is something that has been very important to us. That again, with our air crew and our human-machine interface pieces of what we're doing now in the company, this is very, very important. Our subsidiary, WISC, We have, as our chief engineer for product development, is the former CEO of Whisk. So with that, he brings an incredible amount of knowledge in the work that's been done with air mobility and the needs that are very much present and working within those kind of constrained airspaces with a lot of reliability. So I'm looking forward to the discussion. I think the biggest thing that keeps me concerned about this particular topic is, can we, much like Tanner was saying, can we incorporate the technology, the reliable technology, with enough foresight and with enough data to make our overall airspace safer and better? And I think we can. I'm excited about the topic because I think the technologies that come from this type of work can be incorporated into the commercial aircraft world to help enhance situational awareness with our crews, give them better decision making, and look forward to seeing what that's going to look like in the future.
Excellent. Akbar.
Good morning, and it's indeed an honor to be here today with you all. Akbar Sultan, I am the director for NASA's Airspace Operations Safety Program, and I am responsible for the oversight of the air traffic management operations as well as the safety portfolio across 4 NASA research centers and all the R&D that goes on within the agency for those areas. So just, the obvious question, because sometimes people ask me, why is NASA in the room? I did not get lost on the way to a space summit. So NASA, of course, we have over 100 years of impact and an engagement in aviation, right? We go back to the NATCA days, right after Wright brothers. And then, of course, we transformed to NASA in the 1950s. So we have our, what we always say is NASA is in the DNA of aviation. So when you fly, you won't necessarily see a NASA meatball or a logo on something, but the capabilities and the technology we developed are in there somewhere. And you all use it because we develop capabilities and then we immediately transfer it to, the users, the industry, and the regulators or the standards organization for implementation. So some of the, key things that you all use are, or like things that were born perhaps within our agency and within my organization are like crew resource management. ASRS is under my portfolio. You look at things like, traffic management advisor, which is the sequencing capability that's been deployed nationwide. So when, air traffic issues you an S-turn at cruise altitude as they're trying to sequence you into an arrival at a major airport, that capability was originally developed by NASA and, of course, transferred off. And in case the most recent, if there's folks here from Southwest, American United and Envoy that's been flying around in the DFW, Houston or the Love Field area over last year, we've been flight trialing departure rerouting around weather with you all. So this is how we develop technologies, and essentially it makes it out there. In terms of background, originally, propulsion systems. Then I did a lot of V&V and assurance of highly automated systems, and of course, air traffic management and air safety recently. And as we move forward, what we see in the future is changing, right? Like Elan said, is like helicopters are kind of operating within the gaps of the current aviation. And if we look at the future, it's no longer going to be tube and wing with a few GA and rotorcraft thrown in. The variety of users, the variety of missions are going to be considerably different and dynamic. And not only that, but the density is going to be far more different, going from the current 50 to 70,000 operations to perhaps millions of operations. So that variety, density, of course, makes it far more complex. So what we're focused on is enabling that integration and assisting the human of the future, whether it's the air traffic controller or the pilot or the operator, to provide additional automation to assist the human, because the human's capabilities for reaction time as well as bandwidth is going to be stressed. So this is where we want to be able to make sure that that does not happen. Thank you.
Paul.
Good morning. Thank you to ALPA for the invite to be here today. I really appreciate that. My name is Paul Behan. I'm an air traffic controller from Jacksonville Center. Been there for just shy of 20 years. Most recently, I serve as the ATO Space Integration Representative for NATCA. I work collaboratively with the FAA to design airspace and procedures, develop training, negotiate letters of agreement with space operators and air traffic facilities. And I like to sum it up with people by saying I like to keep rockets from hitting airplanes, because aviation safety is my number one duty priority, right? Prevent a collision in the NAS. So I work very hard at that. Bit about my background: I've been in aviation as long as I can remember. I started learning how to fly airplanes when I was in high school. I became a commercial pilot, a flight instructor before becoming an air traffic controller. I never flew the big planes or the fast planes, but I've got a few thousand hours in piston-driven aircraft, so I do have that background too. And then worked at Jacksonville Center and the airspace at abuts Miami Center down near Cape Canaveral. So I do have a lot of experience working that airspace around Cape Canaveral, dating back to the space shuttle days and now the commercial rocket age.
Excellent. So I actually want to start by talking about these commercial space operations, because this is an area that I personally did not know as much about, and it's pretty fascinating. I think it's also concerning. And Paul, maybe you can talk a bit about, the current state of these operations and how are they affecting the existing system?
Oh, sure. The United States National Airspace System is very static. It doesn't change easily or quickly. Most of our airspace and procedures are 40, 50, 60 years old, just like all of our facilities and all of our equipment is also very old. So going back to the NASA days, when all we did was launch 3, 4, maybe 5 space shuttles in a year, that was a big event, right? Like we slowed things down, we shut down a lot of airspace, but once again, it was only 2, 3, 4 times a year. So we just salute the flag and move on, and nobody thought too much about it. Now we're launching or recovering a commercial space vehicle on average between every 1.5 to 2 days in the National Airspace System. This year, we're going to surpass 200 launch and recovery operations in the National Airspace System. I still have the same equipment as I did when we were only launching 3 or 4 shuttles in a year. Nothing has changed. Air traffic controllers do not have any new tools. We have nothing to enhance that efficiency. There's been a few tweaks to airspace and procedures to make things go a little bit smoother, but ultimately the pain is felt by the controllers just as much as the air traffic or the aviation users.
Excellent. So, Tanner, what's your perspective on the current state of the system and the commercial space operations and how those are stressing it?
My perspective would be one of history rhymes. I see the kind of conversations that are going on the subject of integrating these vehicles into the National Airspace System, and we're having conversations such as, is it a good idea to give the coordinates for the potential rocket debris hazard areas to pilots and dispatchers in advance of a launch, or is it better to hide that information? Is it better to give the coordinates to controllers in advance, or is it better to wait until the vehicle explodes to have them do it on the spot? I see these conversations, and I think this sounds like probably what conversations sounded like 100 years ago. We were talking about whether or not commercial aviation needed air traffic control or not. 100 years before that, it was railroads arguing we did not need time zones. And I think we need to look back to those examples and get ahead of the problem this time. First of all, we need to recognize that the problem is not rockets launching. Commercial space is not our enemy. But at the same time, there exists the issue of solving or making it a safe operation. So to me, it's really trivial whether these vehicles are failing or exploding on a regular basis. My focus is ensuring that the safety support system meant to protect commercial airliners and human safety in the event of that explosion works. It needs to work properly. Now, some collaborative work has been done recently, particularly because of the highly visible events that occurred earlier this year, to improve that system. But the work has not been completed on it. We're not all the way there yet. And in my opinion, there still exists a very major design flaw with that system that must be solved before I will say it is 100% safe for operational use. I hope that we will continue to collaborate on this subject at a high level, and I look forward to the opportunity to find solutions because we do have them prepared if given the opportunity.
And Paul, from your perspective, what would air traffic controllers like, to make their job easier when dealing with these new operations?
We need tools and equipment, plain and simple. Everything we do today is a manual process. Everything is based on pre-calculated hazard areas. The controller at the scope is literally handed a photocopied piece of paper that has the lat-long coordinates of the box of airspace that I need to protect. I have to type those in, I have to draw a box, and I have to keep your airplanes out of it. It is quite literally the definition of segregation. We keep talking about commercial space integration. We're integrating this, we're integrating that. No, we're just getting better at segregating. We're still drawing a box and keeping planes out of it. It's very inefficient. And until such time that we get an automated means of putting dynamic hazard areas on a controller's scope, to me, we're just going to keep segregating until that happens.
Akbar, NASA would seem to combine aviation and space. So give us your perspective on the integration of these commercial operations.
So I'll build upon what Paul said just a moment ago, which is, our focus is essentially on that dynamic airspace and dynamic resectorization and dynamic trajectory management. Precisely for that, because our approach currently is unfortunately through this very static TFRs that are stationary. And you block off large portions of airspace, and we do it for safety reasons, right? Because safety is non-negotiable. But our ability to model debris fields in an off-nominal launch is actually it's already good, and it's getting better. So by being able to predict a potential debris field, and as the vehicle is either ascending or descending back into atmosphere, we're able to continuously be able to see at that moment in time what would a potential debris field look like. So if we're able to predict that and provide the automation decision support tools to the users and the vehicle operators, you could potentially see yourself being able to release airspace as the vehicle is moving. So almost like instead of blocking off the rectangle that Paul indicated, now you're blocking off maybe a bubble, and the bubble is constantly moving. So, and of course, then building it up into the airspace user profile, such as commercial aviation. If you're 5 hours away, right, from that potential space launch, and us being able to provide the user that prediction to say, you can release now, you can leave the gate, you can launch, and by the time you get there, that airspace shall be available to you, assuming a fully nominal operation as well as a potential debris field. And being able to do that, now you can of course start seeing that you can start accessing more of the airspace that currently perhaps is not available.
So I want to actually pivot now to eVTOLs, but stay with you, Akbar, because I know NASA has done a lot of work with eVTOLs and advanced air mobility as well. And how is NASA thinking about integrating these vehicles into the airspace?
Of course, we have done quite a bit of work. I mean, we started with the small UASs, and we developed what's called UAS traffic management, UTM. And as a matter of fact, that's something that was transferred to the industry and FAA, and in order to inform their new rules, regs, procedures. We just recently engaged with Wing, Prime Air, and all others at North Texas Key Site. And we just had an NPRM being issued for beyond visual line of sight operations. And of course, on advanced air mobility, our focus is integration of these vehicles, because on AAM tips, small UASs, they stay around below 400 feet. So in this room, you may not have much interest because you're like, oh, okay, I'm segregated, right? I don't have to worry about it. But the AAM vehicles want to fly between 2,000 to 4,000 feet. So they're going to be mixed, within the traditional airspace in the NAS. So our objective is to enable the seamless integration of them without sacrificing safety. And we're starting off with low levels of saturation, where our first objective is strategic deconfliction. So essentially, deconflicting the tube of the AAM operation from other operations. And of course, as the volumes grow, you have to start getting into tactical deconfliction, vehicle to vehicle. And then the third phase that we're moving on to is degraded visual operations with advanced air mobility. One of the things is that with advanced air mobility, if you look at these vehicles, they're highly automated. Either they are operating with simplified vehicle controls for the pilot, or for that matter, they might be remotely piloted or remotely supervised, like the WISC case. And remotely piloted is like a reliable robotics type vehicle. So our focus there is V&V and assurance of these automated systems. How do we make sure that we have the 10 to the minus 9 aviation grade assurance of these automated systems, especially assurance in contingency and uncertainty modes? We have flown, for example, highly automated systems without any human interventions in the NAS, and for that matter, even in Europe, Airbus flew at 350 recently with almost no human intervention. But if you start looking at it in nominal condition, of course we can do it. One vehicle, everything works fine. Yeah, that's not the problem. The challenge is hundreds of these operating when things start going wrong, and being able to have the resilience that it will still be safe in an off-nominal condition. So that's where we're focused on. And also on the V&V is that we're finding that from the manufacturing side, being able to manufacture these, from avionics side. Why is it that we can't modify our avionics suites? It's because it's too expensive and too time-consuming to do the V&V on these avionics systems. So we're focused on reducing the time and cost on that verification and validation for these systems, such that we can get more rapid introduction of new capabilities as they become available. So that's where we're focused on as an advanced air mobility, is that scaled, safe operations, especially in off-nominal uncertainty and contingency modes.
Great. So Jim, obviously Boeing is involved with WISC. How are you thinking about this?
Yeah, I mean, it's so important to be part of this integration, because we're really at the tactical application level of these technologies, and being able to have vehicles that we can use as proof of concept and application. I mean, we're talking about things that are going to be super important in the off-nominal world. I mean, one of the pieces in integration with regulations and working with navigation, is to be able to provide these very specific routing instructions, have these vehicles fly very precisely. But to do that, you've got to have backups for what happens in a GPS denied environment, or when your navigation systems may be compromised. You have to have the ability to show that other systems can help take over, use the technologies available for other means of that type of navigation. What happens when you do get incursions, when objects or other vehicles are in that same space that are not squawking or not providing ADS-B input? How do you incorporate detect and avoid technologies and the automation to provide the guidance, the proper guidance cues to those vehicles to avoid something that's already going bad from getting worse? And so again, just to put another plug in, I think that these types of technologies are going to be an incredible enhancement once they get better, more reliable, the comfort level goes up within the industry, to be able to put these types of technologies into our commercial airplanes. I mean, I just can't overemphasize enough how much safety would be added to our flight decks, and having our crew be able to see, what the airplane or the other systems are processing and make decisions in a faster way, I think is going to be incredible. So it's an industry that's growing, but I think it's going to also have a lot of retrofit back to make the overall industry safe.
Okay. So Dallas, you have actual experience with these types of like highly automated operations. So can you tell us, just kind of how do your operations work? And then we can go into maybe like what lessons that you think you can offer the rest of the industry based on that experience.
You set me up beautifully. So first off,
You're welcome.
every problem he just listed, we had to tackle successfully in order for the FAA to let us fly. Every single one of them. And Akbar, you also set me up a little bit with UTM. So but I'm going to walk through some of the challenges and what happened. So first off, if we have multiple drone operators, let me describe the environment again. Wing chooses to operate in mode CVAL, again, because there are advantages to us doing so, one of which is better conspicuity, more people are squawking, good thing. Another is, of course, denser populated areas, meaning fewer folks below 1,000 feet versus 500 feet in the min-safe altitude rules. So it narrows the populations of potential encounters that we might have. And then, of course, we can identify those folks and work with them very closely. Helicopters are our number one, absolutely, particularly in the DFW area, because there's a lot of helicopter traffic there. So how do we do this? We're always operating, Wing's case, below 400 feet. So those of you flying commercial 121, I'm sorry, I have to have a little bit of aphasia that sometimes kicks in. 121 operation, you're never going to see us. You're never going to be 5 miles away from an airport at 400 feet in your A337 or whatever your equipment is. You're never going to see us. So, but folks who fly helicopters for a living might, right? Air flight, things like that. But the first problem we had to solve was staying away from crewed aircraft. And the second problem we had to solve was staying away from each other, because we've got Amazon and Wing and Skydio and a couple of other companies that are working. And Akbar mentioned UTM, Uncrewed Traffic Management. UTM is essentially the perfect implementation of NextGen. Bottom line. Remember when we tried NextGen? Didn't go so well. All of those concepts, which are, you are assigned a 4D trajectory to get from point A to point B. That assignment is essentially direct. It is deconflicted from all other 4D trajectories that are being flown by everyone else who participates in the system. You either make your assignment or your assignment is canceled and you file for another one. While you're in your flight, you have to maintain your boundaries. I'm inside of a tube, an airspace tube. I have to make sure that my wingtips never touch the edge of that tube, and I have to make sure that my time marks are met on WAG. That was what NextGen was supposed to do for all of us, but we just couldn't get it done for everyone. UTM took those concepts, applied it in the perfect environment where everybody is automated. We talked about the advantages of that. So when everybody is automated, the rules are really, really, really easy to enforce. And now your exception management burden goes way down because there's virtually no humans in the loop to screw it up, right? Once the automation is mature enough, you are flying on time where you need to go. So we're avoiding each other through essentially strategic deconfliction with monitoring, position monitoring, that's going on through other means. This has been not just proposed and tested, it's also now an ASTM standard. And we are working interoperably in the DFW area right now with 4 other companies, and that's being expanded to 7. So that's the type of tech transition that we were just talking about here. I remember saying when I was at the Pentagon back in 2007, and the JPDO office and the FAA came over to interview us, DOD, about how would you guys feel about NextGen, and would that help you, how would it hurt you, because obviously we're a player in all negotiations about changing rules in the airspace. And I pointed out you're tackling the problem wrong. You're trying to tackle the problem from a crewed aircraft perspective when you should be tackling it from the automated side, and then figuring out the plan to increasingly automate and increasingly make aircraft safer and have them opt into the program. And that's not a concept that they got at the time. I think now we're beginning to see that. The same tech transition happens with detect and avoid, right? The technologies that we're putting into place right now that detect and avoid other aircraft and make certain that whether or not the pilot sees it in time or not, the aircraft takes care of the problem, right? These technologies obviously easily translate onto crewed aircraft as well, especially general aviation aircraft that need it the most, right? Low-cost tech transition that keeps people safer. If I can ask, I'm a commercial instrument rated pilot, single and multi. How many folks are also GA pilots in the room? Own your own aircraft, do other things, right? Tell me how it was 15 years ago, you're all old enough, versus when ForeFlight came out and we started to get our Sentries and our ADS-B capabilities. Your lives changed forever. All of a sudden, you got TSB weather in the cockpit on your iPad or your iPhone. All of a sudden, traffic started showing up, and you knew where to look to find that traffic. Anybody that was squawking, it made you infinitely safer. I make trips now, cross-country trips, that I would never have made 20 years ago based on an hour-old weather forecast that I didn't know if I could trust. But now I'm watching the weather real time. I know whether I've got a good clear alley I can get through, what it looks like. If maybe it's looking iffy, then I come back, or I pick an ultralight, divert, whatever I need to do. And I do that with a lot more confidence because I've got a lot better information. So the same thing works the other way around. This is all ADS-B in and TSB in information, right? What if we also did it on the outside? You mentioned at the beginning the collision at DC Airport, right? I'm a former special operator. I was at JSOC for 3 years. We do national capital region missions that need training. Training missions, however, aren't supposed to be masked, especially that close to a busy airport. So while they were permitted not to squawk and chose not to squawk, they should have been squawking. Had they been squawking, that is something likely would not have happened, right? So the more folks that we have that are participating in the program, unless they have a very solid reason not to, the safer we all are. And right now, there's a lot of folks running around sub 500 feet, ultralights, powered parachutes, etc., that aren't squawking for reasons because that equipment really isn't available to them. There's nothing that's designed to serve their needs. That's changed, right? So UAvionics, the same folks that brought us the tail beacon and the sky beacon that allowed a lot of us GA owners to comply with the ADS-B mandate just in time, build a little box that looks like this. It's called Sky Echo. And there's other folks building other boxes. Suction cup to the windshield, just like your Sentry or your Stratus on your dash. And it broadcasts a low-power ADS-B out signal. Not so high power that it crowds ground stations and clutters up ATC scopes, but powerful enough that it goes about 10, 15 miles, and any aircraft within your area that has got ForeFlight or Garmin Pilot and some sort of ADS-B box picks you up, right? And so there's currently a new new Beyond Visual Line of Sight rule out for UAS that's out for comment right now. One of the proposals in that rule is to authorize this box the same way we authorize those other boxes, which is through a program called NORC. NORC says not everything has to be TSO'd to make you safer. If it can get you 90% safer, we want you to use it. And so a box like this, as opposed to costing at a minimum $2,000 for a bare bones certified ADS-B system that will get you access into class airspace. Instead, a few $100s on something you could stick on your windshield, every drone will be required under this new rule to avoid any airplane that's squawking, period. This is drone repellent. So low cost, low altitude users basically plug this up, set it, forget it, the drones stay out of your way. These are the kinds of quick technology solutions, very precise because they're based on ADS-B, that allow us to work together seamlessly at a low cost, low barrier to entry, low need for technology understanding that keep us all safe almost instantly, right? We rarely have to worry about commercial helicopters because they're normally squawking. Right? We occasionally have to worry about military low altitude traffic. We do that through a high degree of coordination, right? We also have to worry about low-level LE traffic because they often are what we call masked, just like the military stuff. And so, again, high degree of coordination to make sure that when they're flying, we shut down our operations, literally shut down our operations. And when we find someone who's flying in an area that we don't know about, guess what we do? We shut down our operations. Because no delivery that we're going to make is important enough to put somebody else's life at risk. That's how we operate. We're going to continue to operate that way. But the the most blessed thing that I can think of, there are two principles. One, I'm going to hit it again, the tech transition. We are iterating technology on a monthly basis and getting it better and better and better. By the time that our friends in the AAM world are ready to use UTM, we will have it to the 6 nines level, to where they'll be adopting a technology and for their intended use and making some minor modifications. But the bare bones stuff will have been proved out for years. Technology transition. It will also be transitioned to crewed aircraft just because it can be. Why would you not want to be safe, right? Which leads me to my next point. Why would you not want to be safer? And yet we still find, time and time again, I go to a lot of meetings. I go to meetings at airports, et cetera. We still find people that say, I want to fly like I've always flown. I don't want anybody to know where I am. I want to fly under the old rules, and I'm seeing a void, and you got to be able to see and avoid me, and I don't care what that means to you. I don't care if it means you got to put eyeballs in your cockpit or radar on your drone or whatever it is. You got to work around me. Well, I'm here to tell you that that's not how safety works. Safety means everybody participates. We all understand the need to do that. And with coming air traffic modernization, we all know we're going to see more automation. It's going to happen. So what we're seeing right now, the tech transition opportunities, what we're doing in the space of AAM and drone operations is a predecessor to demonstrating just how safe the system can be. I'll end it one more time. 600,000 commercial deliveries, never got anywhere close to an aircraft. We're going to keep that going. I know that no other form of aviation's ever done that. So the reason we're able to do that, quick iteration of technology, close coordination with all of our aviation partners, and making it work. So thanks so much.
Awesome. So I want to open it up to audience questions. So feel free to go to any of the microphones if you have a question. And in the meantime, I see that there are some questions that came in through text. If you want to read one of those out to us.
All right, thank you. Yes, we did get a question from an ALPA member. As an airline pilot, what is being done to ensure that eVTOL and drones do not become a safety or security issue for my operations?
Go first. You second.
Akbar, do you want to take up?
Yeah, sure. So the first concern that we have is being able to, as we integrate them, is being able to know with great certainty, well, not great certainty, absolute certainty, what is the intent of that vehicle, where is that vehicle going to be, and especially if the vehicle is uncrewed, whether it's remotely piloted or remotely supervised, what is that vehicle going to do in an off-nominal situation, especially in lost comm, lost control, or anything else for that matter. And that vehicle will perform what it's supposed to do, and that way, if you have to take the traditional commercial transports out of the way, or keep them on the way because you still know that that vehicle is going to be the AAM vehicle is going to conform. The second thing is conflict detection and avoidance, and doing that through automated means. Being able to do the automated detect and avoid, and having that, both between the crewed operations and uncrewed operations. And then the third element that we're focused on is what we're calling it is in-time aviation safety management system. Especially as we start looking into emergent aviation, right? Commercial transport aviation is the safest mode of transport, and that's because it's based on decades of data, decades of history. As we start looking at emergent aviation, that background, that data does not yet exist. We have a tremendous amount of data, as Wing indicated, through the operations, for example, in North Texas, but it's not the decades worth. So we have to get into predictive data analytics, predictive safety, to be able to look for precursors to safety incidents and accidents before they occur, before it becomes an incident or an actual accident. And this is where we're really focused in within NASA and our industry partners is in enabling that predictive analytics to make sure that that vehicle is going to do exactly what it is, and if there's a failure coming up, being able to detect it and nip it before it actually propagates further down the line, and make sure that that vehicle is always in conformance, whether it's whether it's in nominal mode or even off nominal mode, it still needs to be in conformance. So that's how we're trying to approach it, such that it does not adversely affect commercial transport.
Great. I see there's a question in microphone 4.
Yeah, thank you. And Dallas, your point about, we all have to work together is well taken. And yet, in the notice of proposed rulemaking, the unmanned operators are given sole right of way and no ADSD mandate within shielded areas. And there's been a whole lot of back and forth about what a shielded area is. And currently it's 50 feet. But can you commit on the industry side that all these drones will have that see and avoid capability and not have the same carve-outs that you're lamenting in manned aircraft?
So we're talking two different things, so I'm going to try to take them independently. If you're operating what's called shielded, that means you're operating within 50 feet of an object, right? So for most purposes, it's like doing an inspection of a cell phone tower with a quad drone. 50 feet is pretty darn close, right? So if that operator is doing their job, maintaining within 50 feet, it could also be a bridge, it's anything that needs inspection. But if that drone operator is doing what they're supposed to do and keeping that aircraft within 50 feet of that object, unless you're flying your airplanes under bridges or right at cell phone towers, again, it's never going to affect your operation. Those folks are not required necessarily to have detect and avoid, because the expectation is, when they're flying that close to an object, that the rules say the rest of you have to be maintained at least 500 feet from, at least, that there's an expectation.
Not in all situations.
Not at all situations.
Not in helicopter operations, on unimproved.
Well, I'm talking about drones.
No, right? but there are manned uses within those areas.
There are, right? But there's also a requirement to coordinate with the owner of that infrastructure that is likely the manned user. For example, power lines. Southern Company work with them a lot. They do a lot of drone operations. They're very interested in transitioning their power line inspections to drones because they lose 1 to 2 people a year by helicopters flying too close to these things. If a drone wants to fly near a Southern Company power line, they can't just choose to do it under the shielded rule. They've got to coordinate with the owner of that infrastructure to do it. And Southern Company is not likely to say yes, first off, at all. But second off, if you have a valid reason to be there, you're helping them, or there's some reason you're doing research, they do say yes, they'll make sure that their own traffic is clear. So I want to make sure I get to all your questions. So keep drilling down if you need to.
Well, but the infrastructure operator might not be the only use case down there. You can have cell towers close to airports. The initial 108 rule, the drone folks wanted the whole airspace under 400 feet to be shielded area. And I'm really concerned about this idea that the drones don't have to play nice within a shielded area, and we're leaving a nose under the tent, and then these shielded areas will get expanded when certain performance-based metrics can't be made. So what I would like to see from the industry is a commitment for the same level of see and avoid in all areas.
Well, I can tell you from Wing's perspective, we don't use shielding at all. It's not part of our CONOP. We just do things a little bit differently. The folks that I tend to think about in terms of shielding that actually have a piece, right, are ag operators. I've got a lot of friends who are ag operators. They're low in between, and they're trying to make money, right, in a low margin business. So they're going quickly from one place to another, and they're often flying. There's a cell phone tower in the middle of a field, but they still got to get that field done. Those guys and gals have a beef, right? So they're like, we have to work closely together with them. I am not at all concerned about the expansion of shielding at the moment. I think it's going to be sort of a fairly tightly controlled window because if you expand shielding, you lose the buffer. Right now that buffer's 450 feet. Why continue to drive that down to 350 or even less? I don't feel speaking as a member of 5 industry associations in the drone world, I've not heard that call that shielding needs to be expanded to, call up, say, 150 feet. We certainly would oppose it. So, thank you.
Okay. I think there's another text message question.
Yes, there is. I think this will have to be the last question, unfortunately. But this one would go to a question about space from another pilot. If I'm scheduled to fly through a space launch area, what can I do to manage the risks if there's a rocket explosion?
I can take that.
Yeah.
The system that supports airliner safety during a rocket launch is something called the DRA system. It stands for Debris Response Area. Right now, the airspace management plans, including the coordinates for where those hazard boxes are, if you will, are not being published in a format where pilots can find them. And that is a problem that we've raised at the highest levels and will continue to raise. I can tell you in a little bit more specifics. I would search, and I recognize that this is not a great answer, but this is where we're at right now with this process. Search your NOTAMs for keywords such as space, space launch, or Starship, if I'm being frank. In terms of planning, earlier this year, the FAA made the decision, which I would consider the extremely wise decision, and I hope that we'll see more of this, to call a collaborative panel together, a high-level working group with representatives from commercial space, commercial aviation, and regulators themselves to hammer out the DRA system into something that's workable in the current context of space launch operations. I was in attendance of that meeting, or that series of meetings. My colleague Paul, also in attendance. We made several good changes to that system, and one of them involved getting the airspace back open in the event that it was closed due to a vehicle failure or an explosion. So the idea is any airliners that are in those DRAs, in those potential hazard boxes, if a launching rocket fails or explodes, the system activates and the airliners are moved out of the box. The other half of that issue is once the box is made hot, so to speak, it's closed airspace until the hazard can be cleared. Prior to those series of meetings, the FAA was holding those areas closed for 99 minutes out of an abundance of precaution. And what we found was that if we introduced an augmentary tool called RAT, the real-time range analysis tool, that it could build a ballistic trajectory in 18 minutes and tell us exactly where the debris went. So that cut the closure time from 99 minutes to 18 minutes. So where I'm going with this is, if you happen to be on one side or the other of one of these DRAs and they are brought hot, you can expect a hold for approximately 18 to 20 minutes while they run the solution. So my guidance to you would be to take some additional fuel, take 20 to 30 minutes of additional fuel, and I would treat the hazard, the area in general where the DRAs occupy for planning purposes as you would a weather hazard like a thunderstorm. I'm not saying to have a specific alternate on each side built into your flight plan, but be thinking about, if I get caught on one side or the other, is there someplace I can go? And that would be my recommendation.
Excellent. And unfortunately, we're out of time, but I want to thank all of our panelists for the really great insights. I think it's been a great discussion. Thank you to the audience, and hope you enjoyed it as well. And I believe we're off to lunch now. So, great.